Welcome to Burning the Ships, folks. Today I got an exciting guest, Erin Bradley. She's somebody that I connected with several months ago. That we had a mutual friend that made a connection, and she invited me to come on her podcast, Pursuing Freedom, which we're going to talk about, and I'll have down in the show notes and all of that. But Erin, she's a fascinating individual. She is truly living life on her terms, full freedom, flexibility, all those things, and she is able to do that through her intentionality of wanting that life and pursuing it. So everything she does through her coaching platform, her book, her podcast, all of that stuff is centered around that theme of setting your life up by design, and she's a great example of that. We talked about a bunch of different topics, and I think you guys will enjoy every bit of it. And I will go ahead and tell you a little bit about Erin, and then we'll get started with the interview. Erin Bradley is a speaker and a trainer, best-selling author, and host of the real estate podcast, Pursuing Freedom. As a mortgage lender, Erin learned the hard way just how difficult entrepreneurship and success in sales can be, from flat broke to six figures and then to burnout. Erin has been through it all and quickly discovered that the stress of overwhelm is no less painful than the financial stress. After redesigning her business to support her dream life, she's been on a mission to teach her fellow real estate professionals to do the same. Erin operates under the mindset that you never give up and you never settle, in life or in business. Anything is possible when you have the right mindset, great systems, and an amazing team. So let's get going with Miss Erin Bradley. I hope you guys enjoy. Erin Bradley, welcome to Burning the Ships.
Jason, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
I do.
I'm so glad we were able to get this done. I know we had scheduled it previously, and we both had things come up, but I follow you on social media, so I know that you had a wonderful holiday season and spent a lot of time on the slopes, and I imagine you guys are still doing that, this time of year. But Erin, I'm thankful for you coming on. I was able to come on your podcast a couple months back, and we met through some mutual friends. And my favorite part about doing this podcast has been meeting folks, through this platform that I otherwise probably would have never come across in my life, and you're certainly one of those. You have an interesting story. You have your own Burning the Ship story, which it fits right into this theme. So what I'd like to do is kind of start off by turning it over to you, introduce who you are. And in the introduction, I kind of already have done that, but just tell us at a high level who you are, where you're from, a little bit about yourself and your story and your family, and then I'll get into questions from there.
All right, sounds good. It's a pretty funny start, actually. As the youngest of five kids, my dad was a stockbroker and financial wealth manager, financial advisor in Philadelphia. I grew up in the East Coast and outside Philadelphia. And all of my siblings went to college, studied business, and for the most part, went straight into corporate America. And so as the youngest, coming out of college with a business degree, I just decided that I wanted to take advantage of a little bit of me time, post-college, pre-career world, right? And my sister had been, climbing the corporate ladder on the East Coast, New York City, Washington, D.C., and she was having her first child when I was graduating from college. So she ended up leaving that career and, being a stay-at-home mom as she went on to have four kids. And so I was just, curious as a 22-year-old, if I'm going to be a family woman someday, if I'm going to have kids someday, then, if I'm going to have a career and then I might leave it. I just didn't know where my future was going to lead. So I thought I'm going to selfishly take advantage of some travel time now at 22. And I kayaked the coast of Mexico for a month, and then I went to Barcelona for a month, and that turned into 2 years. And I was teaching English over there. But before I found work, I needed to figure out how to pay rent. And I convinced my girlfriends that we could sell beers on the street corner, just like everybody else is doing, because there were these guys selling beers out of backpacks at the beach and at the park and at the music festivals. And so we needed rent money, and there was this music festival going on in this plaza up the street from our apartment. And I told him, we could do this. So just fill up a trash bag with ice and some cans of beer and put it in a roller bag, and we'll bring it up there and just say, cerveza, un euro. So we buy these beers for 37 cents and sell them for $1, essentially. And we did. We sold hundreds of beers, enough to get our $350 of rent money, because we were living basically in like a 1-bedroom cave. And I think that was the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, right? It was like I was burning the boats already at 22 years old.
Yeah.
But anyway, I ended up coming back to the States after my 2 years of having fun and, living like a hobo, and figured, okay, I probably need to figure out how to make some money. And I get back to the States, and then on a whim, end up moving to Colorado to help my brother-in-law open a bar restaurant. I was bartending. I was teaching Spanish. I was freelance teaching English as a second language. And I kind of thought that was the path I was going to be on, is just teach. And I loved it. And then somebody said, I think you'd be good in the mortgage business. And I remember being like, no. At this point, corporate America is not for me. And they said, no, just check it out. Meet my friend. He owns this little mortgage company. And it turns out to be this little Latino mortgage brokerage. And they're all friends. And they needed a bilingual American to help with some of their sales calls, essentially, to American leads that they were getting. And it was cool. I mean, they were a really cool group of people. They were coming to work in jeans and a t-shirt and, doing yoga in the middle of the day, and then putting on their suit to go to closing. And I thought, that's what I should be doing. I'm going to go 100% commission. I'm going to be a loan officer. So I take the leap in 2007, right before the market crashes, like a genius, and I go 100% commission. And I promptly fall flat on my face. And not just because of the market, but honestly, I had no financial safety net. I had no systems, no game plan, no confidence. I hated feeling salesy, so most of the training they gave me was just absolutely dreadful, and I refused to do it. So by the summer of 2008, I'm now maxed out on tens of thousands of dollars in credit card debt, about to get married. I get a lead for a client, and I have to ride my bike 5 miles across town in the heat of July to meet this client because I don't have enough money for gas. And I'm thinking I got to get there early because I don't want him to see me coming on a bike. And I'm trying to figure out like what I can wear that looks professional and ride a bike, and then, get there early, let the sweat dry off. And so I get there early. Unfortunately, the client gets there early as well. And he introduces himself to me as my credit card is being declined for a $2 cup of coffee. And the messed up part is that I actually thought that was the card that would work. So I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. If I try another card, he's going to know. So I just lied. And I'm like, that's weird. How strange. That's my debit card. I'm going to have to call the bank. Anyway, he buys my coffee. And I've just...
I got to stop you there for a second. So do you know who Kevin Hart is, the comedian? He's got a bit on, credit card being declined. You got to look that bit up. So that will fit your story perfect. You'll get a good laugh at it. So carry on. I had to inject that. So,
well, I remember calling my dad because he had gone 100% commission in his 20s. And I'm like, Dad, how do you do? Like, I'm freaking out. This is so much harder than I thought. I had some bills to pay. I didn't know what I was going to do. As embarrassing as this sounds, I was about to get married. And I remember saying to my husband, thank God we invited 230 people to our wedding because, some people are going to give us cash gifts and we're going to have money to pay our bills. We just have to make it to next week. And so my dad said, do you think you're going to be good at this someday, Erin? And I'm like, I do, actually. I think I could be good at this. And he said, then you just do whatever it takes. And so I ended up opening another credit card, and I actually hired my first business coach. And now that it's however many, almost 20 years later, and I'm coaching full time, I hear a lot of people say, when I can afford a coach. Well, if you asked me, could I afford that coach? I probably would have said no, but I know now I couldn't afford not to, right? Because I wasn't getting very far on my own. So I hire the coach and I do whatever it takes. I literally tell the coach, I'm desperate, tell me what to do. So for a couple years, I start getting by. I was still feeling massive imposter syndrome though, like totally felt like an alien in this business because most of the sales training I was getting was, do this activity to get leads, to get deals, to get money. And it just felt really self-serving. And I couldn't put my finger on it. I was grateful when I was closing deals, but I just wasn't sure I was in the right shoes, if that makes sense. And then it wasn't until 2011, I tell the story all the time, but I read this book called The Go-Giver. Have you ever read that?
The Go-Giver?
Yeah.
I have not.
Okay. It's literally changed my life. It was a complete paradigm shift for me. The Go-Giver philosophy is that whether it relates to sales or anything else in life, that your goal is to give more in value than you hope to receive in payment. Or in other words, give more above and beyond what you get paid to do. And it really resonated with me. And I could see why I was struggling with traditional sales tactics. So I ended up developing a strategy where I thought to myself, okay, well, if my clients don't need my services except every 3 or 5 or 7 years, what does it really mean to be of value to them when they're not needing a mortgage? Because up until now, I was doing all the push marketing, right? Sending mailers and newsletters. And nowadays it's social media and it's all about me, really, right? Like home improvement tips and reminder to turn back the clock. I mean, stupid stuff that's just like making you top of mind by doing marketing. And I thought none of that has anything to do with what's really going on with my clients. So I decided I'd make it my mission to figure out what was really going on with them. And there's this quote that it's when you step back from the single brush stroke that you can see the entire painting. And so I thought to myself, the closing, the deal, the paycheck, that's just one brushstroke in the painting of their lives. And once that deal has closed and they're in the home, life goes on. And I want to be on a mission to find the brushstroke of the painting that they're on now. So what are they excited about? What are they worried about? What are they working on? What stage of life are they navigating? And then I want to find a way to be a resource, which meant building a tribe of trusted local service providers. So I just started calling my friends and my clients and telling them I had this idea and then asking them to introduce me to any trusted service providers. It could be a health and wellness, financial services, home contractors, you name it. And I started building that community of local service providers. And then I just started promoting them back to my clients. And I stopped promoting myself and I started promoting others. And my business more than doubled. So it's now 2012 and I'm pregnant with my second child. And my business totally takes off. I'm earning way more than I ever expected in my life. And I did so with no foundation, right? Like I never expected this level of volume. So I wasn't prepared for it. And I was drowning. I was working 24/7, burning out big time. And I remember talking to some people that I considered ahead of me in the game at a work dinner party, the people that were doing more volume than me, their kids were a little older than me. And I asked them, how the hell are you doing this? Because I am tethered to my phone 24/7. I'm exhausted, about to have my second child, and I'm a shell of myself. I'm not present at all. And they admitted that they work until 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night at their home office after their kids go to bed. And so I went home, talked to my husband. I'm like, I think I'm not cut out for this because if this is what success looks like, this is not freedom and flexibility. Like I became self-employed for freedom and flexibility, hence the name of my company, Pursuing Freedom. Well, I didn't feel free when my credit card was being declined. And I also didn't feel free when I was a slave to my success. So I tried shrinking my vision. I thought, well, if I could just do less volume, I'll be better off. And I now know that that doesn't work. Like we're not here to shrink, we're here to expand. And my business dried up. I found myself in credit card debt again. And it was either like, I'm going to shrink, I'm going to suck it up and survive, or I've got to figure out how to scale. And so then I started scaling. And all along, I started teaching real estate agents what I was doing. So I found that number one, I wasn't the only one who struggled with inconsistency, insecurity, lack of systems, lack of discipline, lack of confidence, and lack of business, right? Like there's people out there that would be excellent at customer service given the opportunity, but they struggle to bridge the gap and find consistent income, right? Find the clients because sales feels uncomfortable to a lot of people. Right. And so I started teaching the strategy that was working for me, and it was then creating results for others. And then I started teaching how I was building my team and, when to hire and what to delegate. And that became kind of my passion. That teacher within me, from the early days is really what I love. So that's kind of led to publishing my book and starting my podcast. And that kind of led to speaking and then coaching. And so the real burning of the ships came fast forward all the way to 2022. And I had built a very thriving mortgage business. I had hired some of my best friends. We together created extraordinary growth, but I always felt more alive and more fulfilled in the teaching space. And so I learned to continually fire myself from anything in my business that I didn't enjoy, even though it was terrifying. And I thought, if I stop doing this, my clients aren't going to work with me. And if I stop doing this, my clients or my referral partners are going to stop referring me. But that wasn't the case. It wasn't really about me. It was about how good are my systems and how great is the culture and how amazing is the customer experience. And it got better and better as we fine-tuned the systems and scale, right? So I just really felt like it was a pipe dream that someday I could be coaching full time and create a training organization for other freedom seekers out there in real estate and mortgage that don't want to survive the journey and suck it up and be inauthentic. And they don't want to survive their success and be a slave to their phone 24/7. So just, I know I'm not alone. And so finally at 2022, I was speaking on a stage at a real estate conference, and I was talking about life by design, right? And how often we say to ourselves, I wish I could do that, but, and whatever follows the but, if you get intimate with it, is your fear. And the fear becomes the story that becomes the excuse for why we play small. I wish I could do that, but, and then we defend the limitation of our mind, really. And so I was doing a talk about this and realized I'm not taking my own advice. And I came home. Once again, I said to my husband, I think the whisper just became a roar. I'm not listening to my own advice. I'm here preaching to the choir, and I'm secretly, I have this pipe dream that I'm unwilling to pursue because honestly, fear of letting people down. It wasn't fear of whether I would be quote unquote successful in this arena. I've been sort of, straddling these two lanes for a long time. And honestly, I think that a lot of the teaching I was doing was also funneling the success of my mortgage business. It was almost like the umbrella brand, if that makes sense. So I just said, I've got to do this. And I had massive anxiety around telling my team members because, like I said, I had hired my loved ones, and those that weren't my loved ones before became my loved ones. Like we had a really amazing little thing going. And so just kind of tail between my legs, I divulged, the dark secret on my heart that I think I want to go do this full time and I'm going to walk away. And they were actually really supportive. And so I'm grateful for that. And they're still all together and we're still connected, and I feel blessed. And it's just another story around how to not let our fear hold us back from taking the leap. And I did. I burned the ships. I did not renew my license. People are like, you didn't renew your license. What if you need to go back to it? I'm like, there is no going back. Like, I've lost sight of that island. I'm on my way to the next one,
Right. Yeah. Same way. And we talked about it before, but there wasn't even an option. Like I was in the insurance industry to renew my license. It never crossed my mind, should I do it? I didn't even think about it because I was done. It was time to go. So it's funny how aligned our paths are, because I left my career in 22 as well after many years in the same industry with the same mindset that you have. But one thing that I find interesting as you kind of walk through that is, and I think this is true for all of us, we find who we are. We may not recognize it right away, but we find who we are pretty early in life, right? And you go back to when you were down in Mexico and doing, all the things you were doing at 22 years old, you always went to teaching, right? That was, in coaching, because that was natural to you. You liked it, you were passionate about it, and you knew that's how you could, feed yourself at that time. So full circle, come back to 2022, you're still having that same desire to go do the thing that you're passionate about. And you're exactly right. The fear, everybody has that, right? Like I to some degree had it in the sense that, like, my job, I was doing what I was passionate about. And that was not that I couldn't care less about insurance, but I believed in the products I was selling. But what I'm passionate about is helping people, is talking to people, right? I cannot survive without talking to people. And that career gave me the opportunity to do that every day. My fear was not being able to do that, because I knew whatever I did, I was going to put myself in a position to talk to folks. My fear was more, I had gotten to a point where my kids were a little bit older. We had built something due to the income that I had from that career. And all the fear was more, it was financial based, but in the sense I didn't want to add stress to my wife. I didn't want to add stress to our relationship, our marriage, and stuff like that. So I had to overcome those fears and just block in and go in. So when you talked about overcoming fears, what specifically was your fear? in 2022 when you were trying to wrestle with this? What was the fear of leaving what you were doing and going to the next thing?
Honest to God, it was just 100% what people would think of me and letting people down.
That was it. Yeah.
It was, I'm a recovering people pleaser.
Yeah.
And I felt a lot of responsibility. In 2019, full disclosure, it wasn't a straight line and it never is, right? So
Yep.
I had hired my first team member in the summer of 14, one of my good friends. And in 2015, the business more than doubled. And it was so apparent I had been my own bottleneck because I kept hitting my ceiling of personal capacity. I would, turn the faucet on to grow the business and then reach that limit where everything started to crumble in other areas of my life. And I just didn't feel present. I didn't feel energized. And I started to resent my own success. And so that was kind of a roller coaster I was on for 7 years before I finally got out of my own way. And so then in 2015, I hired my nanny after 2.5 years because she's one of the most detail-oriented, brilliant perfectionists I ever met. And she became our office manager and then quickly moved up in the business to probably being one of the smartest people on the entire team. And then it kind of went like that. I hired my neighbor who was one of my good friends, and then, on and on it went. But then 2018 rolled around and my dad had passed suddenly in 2017, and that rocked my world. And then 2018, the market shifted, rates went up, the refi business died overnight. Wells Fargo laid off 3,000 people in one day. It was a temporary thing before we went into the boom that followed. But I had started my podcast and I was coaching and I was honestly doing a lot, maybe too much. And so when I came into 2019, my business was not in a good place. My mortgage business, my P&L was in the red, and corporate was about to force my hand to lay off some team members. And here I had hired people I care about so much. So I remember just creating a plan, a simplified plan, and committing to following the same strategy that worked for me when, the business more than doubled from 2011 to 2012. And again, went after hired my team member in 2014, 90 days of training her. And the biggest fear happened. My business slowed down because I was busy training her. So I applied the same strategy that I teach in my book and in my community. And so here I was in 2019 there again, like tens of thousands of dollars in the red on my P&L. I've got to turn the ship around. And I always felt this massive responsibility for my team and that it was up to me. And I didn't ever want to let anybody else feel my stress. So I committed to the plan. We went from 3 closings a month in January to 9 a month in March to 17 a month in April or by June. So we 5x'd the volume in 5 months and had a really good run after that. And it was kind of that, right? It was like this feeling of it's 2022, the market is starting to change again. And I felt this heavy responsibility to not let anybody down and that it was on me. So that was it. It was really just, that was my strong fear and that I was going to disappoint the people I care about, or that I was going to leave them in a bad situation or something like that. But like I said, the opposite happened. It was the best decision I've ever made. And I teach this business planning every year for real estate professionals. And we do this very specific reflection process, answering questions about the last 12 months in order to access the clarity to create goals for the future that are anchored in our heart, not stemming from our head, which is like, I think I should, this, or maybe I should do this. And that's all should, right? I always say, don't should all over yourself. Right. What do you really want? And so some of the reflection questions, I always say they don't change because your answers change. And I always ask, what was the biggest risk you've taken in the last 12 months? And then another question is, what was the smartest decision you made in the last 12 months? And I've been teaching this for over a decade. And every single year, if I ask for a show of hands, how many of you had the same answer for those 2 questions? It's usually roughly 85% or more, if not 95% of the room raises their hands. My biggest risk turned out to be my smartest decision. And I say that is there scientifically to remind you that every time you feel called to the next thing, you're on the leading edge of unfamiliar territory. It's a foreign land. You're exploring the possibility of something that feels like, God, that would be amazing. Again, but What if it doesn't work? What if I fail? Is this realistic? Is it even responsible, right? So our brain really activates to keep us safe. So it's natural that we are always going to be feeling that fear because, like I said, I mean, I believe human beings are here to expand. And the reason we know this is because if you look back to times in your life where maybe you did take that leap and maybe you achieved a goal that seemed unrealistic or even irresponsible. And then how long do you revel in it before it's replaced with a new desire?
Yep,
You know?
absolutely. Yep.
And how much of your now reality that's become your normal was at one point just an idea or an impulse or a pipe dream. And now it's just your normal, but you're always longing for what's next, which means fear is an indicator that you are on the way to more and more greater things. And it's nothing wrong with that. Like ambition is not a dirty word. It's part of the expansion process. I think it's what makes life fun and interesting. And I think our brains activate to quote unquote keep us safe, but that's also limiting us from the experience of the unfolding of all of the unscripted, unexpected opportunities, relationships like you and I, right? A year ago, we didn't know each other. And then our paths crossed and I loved having you on my show. And I feel like I met a new friend and I'm probably going to invest with you. And I want to introduce you to my community. And it's going to lead to all of these potential new relationships in your life that 12 months ago, we didn't even know each other existed.
Right.
So if we were playing safe, not getting out there, not having a little fun, not meeting new people because we want to figure it all out, we're probably missing 90% of the goodness of life because we're over here in safety mode, playing small. And it's not comfortable to play small. Like we know it, you know?
Yeah. So I've been jotting down a bunch of stuff here. So I want to stay on, all right, because I want to come back to this, what you're talking about exactly right now. But I want to go back to when you were talking about, you used the word presence quite a bit. You weren't as present as you felt you needed to be and things like that. I don't know if I've talked to you about this on your podcast or not. I can't remember, but I had this it was a weird stretch of time for me right after I left my job. And I want to see if you had the same thing where I had been going 100 miles an hour for years. It's all I knew. I'd grown my personal book of business to over 1,000 clients. I was managing a team that had several thousand clients, and I was at the helm of all that. And it was 24/7. I had to have this thing on, available, weekends, nights. I could not escape it. So when I made the decision to leave that career, which that was a big piece of it, I wanted to free myself of that attachment to all of that because it was compromising my life. It was compromising my family, all those things. And I just wanted freedom from that. But I had it's kind of like, it was a detox period where my last day in my office of that career was December 30th of 22. And I walked out of that door, and at midnight the next day, all of my connection to that email, my phone service, everything I had with that career was gone. It was gone. So all the hundreds of emails I got every day and the text and the calls and all that stuff, it was eliminated. And I didn't like it. So the next week I was like, what the hell do I do? I don't know what to do. I knew I had my real estate business that wasn't nearly as chaotic in the sense of just always having to answer to folks constantly. And it was about a 6-month period where the whole goal was to get away from that and be present in my life. And I could not mentally get there because I didn't know how to act after 17 years of that every day, all day, every night, every weekend. So did you have any of that period of like detox where you just couldn't handle it at all? Did you have any transition issues when you went from your job to what you're doing now?
Yes. However, it was a journey that I referred to as the unbecoming.
Okay.
It was so the unbecoming, stressed, rushed, overwhelmed, overconnected, overcommitted. And it actually started before I took the leap. Initially, in 2019, when I had that month where we turned the ship around and there were 17 closings in 1 month, at the time, that was one of my best months ever. And I called my coach at the time. I always have at least one coach. And so I called my coach and I said, this is crazy. I'm proud of the fact that we got here, but I feel like I'm more to ship to port and I'm on the wrong island. Like I'm not enjoying this work as much anymore. And so the first thing she said was, I said that I was starting to resent my phone binging, like, dinging all the time. So the first thing we did was I actually got a new cell phone number and I ported my old number, which had been tethered to me for the previous 12 years. I ported it to the team. And so we got a phone system in place so that my phone would just stop ringing like that. And the first Friday that we activated that and my phone didn't ring or ding all weekend long, it was uncomfortable for sure. Yeah. And we had bought a condo in the mountains and we had moved full-time to a ski town, which was another one of my like burning the ships moments. But I just remember being up in the mountains and I said to my husband, like, you hear that? And he's like, what? I'm like, silence.
Yes.
Nothing,
Right.
And luckily, because I was in a ski town, I could just go ski to distract myself from the discomfort, right, of the weirdness of the noise having been canceled. But then in 2020, another big leap that we took was we ended up deciding to do a 6-month RV road trip and homeschool our kids. During COVID, we just didn't want to have the in and out of the classroom. And, we just decided to rewrite the crazy. And I remember thinking, this will probably put me out of business. Like people think I've pieced out, but it actually resulted in a 50% increase in our business. And, right. And because of that, being on the road, I had to learn how to be fully present with the experience. I didn't want to feel like I was doing this incredible adventure with the kids who at the time were in 5th and 2nd grade. And that I would look back and realize that I had missed the entire experience. And so that word for that year was unbecoming. I was working on unbecoming, stressed and rushed and overwhelmed and overcommitted and overconnected. And so I started putting those boundaries in place, partly out of necessity, but also out of a desire, right? I see a lot with self-employed people, entrepreneurs. We took this leap of faith for a reason. We wanted to have more flexibility. We wanted time freedom. We wanted to have no limit on our income. And yet how many self-employed people are slaves to their phone with no boundaries in place whatsoever? And also, it's not the easy route. Being self-employed isn't easy. So I remember just talking myself into being present, like giving myself permission. I give myself permission to be here now. And what I learned was it was an illusion. All those years that I thought I was doing my best by making myself available from the moment I'm awake to the moment I fall asleep was actually a disservice to my clients and my team and my family. Because here I am handling the most important financial decision of someone's life, and I'm scattered, distracted, overwhelmed, overcommitted, preoccupied. I might be physically here with you in this moment, but I'm mentally a million miles away, replaying a conversation from another day or another hour. And I teach that in my workshops, in my community and my clients. I'm like, look, stop convincing yourself that you're doing your best and that you quote unquote have to. I just have to. Real quick, honey, sweetie, sorry, I just have to. No, you don't. You became self-employed for a reason. So act like it. Create a plan and have a schedule that allows you to operate at peak performance and give yourself permission to rest and recover because your clients deserve better. And we wouldn't allow a surgeon to operate on us who is exhausted, spread thin, preoccupied, multitasking. Like, real quick, let me just take this call while I'm like a dentist working on your teeth. Just taking that call real quick, just sending that email real quick. We expect high-level professionals that we trust with our health and our finances to be present with us, right? Mm-hmm. But we don't operate that way. So I just kind of think it's BS. I think that the entire society that makes excuses that I just have to, I need to, I have to, because they don't have better plans, they don't have good systems, and they don't have people to help them run their business with ease. So they're just surviving their own success. To what end? Because the external world isn't going to come and grab the phone and say, let me give you permission to do it differently. And what I found was the less I sort of defended the excuse that I have to do this, and I claimed my time freedom with affirmations like, I have all the time I need to accomplish what matters most. That's there to remind you to be a little more discerning about what matters most. And I have complete freedom over my time. I do, actually. I just am not acting as if I do. So I heard on my podcast one time a woman who had been a slave to her success for 10 years and was always on her phone and even on her laptop at her kids' sporting events and things like this. And she woke up one day and realized my actions are not a reflection of my true priorities. And I remember it just kind of hit me in the gut. This was many years ago. My actions were not a reflection of my true priorities. We claim we're doing this for our families, but our families get the leftovers.
Yep. Amen.
So if you really want your actions to reflect your priorities, evaluate your priorities and then prove it with your actions. And that shows up in even how you run your business. You want to be financially free, but you're unwilling to operate with consistency or hire someone to execute with consistency so you can take your business to the next level so you can have financial freedom, then your actions don't reflect your true priorities. If you're distracted, making excuses, running on fumes, multitasking your way through your day, your actions don't reflect your priority. It's that simple. I mean, it's not easy, but it is that simple.
And my, so like I said, I quickly got, after that detox period, I transitioned pretty quickly but a lot of things that helped me is, I've got a wonderful wife and she's, got wisdom way beyond what I have, but one thing I would do, and she pointed this out in my former career, was my schedule would fill up with work stuff, right? Every week, appointments, meetings, everything I had to be a part of, and I would fill the gaps with family stuff. So anytime there was, or this evening I'm free, so, it's a movie night or whatever, I would, that's what would take second priority over the job. So what we started doing, now that I was out of that was the goal, to get away from all that. So now we do it to this day. Every Sunday, my wife and I, we look at our calendar, and it all syncs up with my business and everything. And we load it up with family stuff. So, ball games, practices, hunting, all the hobbies we do, all the fun things that we like to do as a family. And that leaves little gaps throughout the week that I then fill in the business stuff and the podcast stuff and stuff like that. And what that has done for me, I preach this to everybody I can now, but what it has done for me, it has forced me to be laser focused and present with the business stuff in those small blocks of time that I block off for it, because I know once I'm done with that time slot, I am hats off, family focused, phones away. I'm not even looking at it. And I have, that was a big shift for me to get there. But what you mentioned, you've got to be that way. If you're not that way, you're doing your clients a disservice. Well, you're also doing your family a disservice, right? You mentioned it. You got little kids. If they're second on the calendar, there's no way possible I'm ever going to give them the presents they deserve and need from their father. So, and like you as a mother. So, and I know you preach this and coach this, and I kind of want to segue now into that. Talk about your program and what you offer and your book and your podcast and all the things that, you've alluded to a lot of it, but how is that structured and what do you offer for folks that are interested in more lessons on stuff like this?
Well, so my motto with pursuing freedom is that the goal is to build a life you don't need a vacation from.
I love it.
So when we're done here, I'll have my community call that we do every Tuesday, Thursday. And then I go ski. I'll be skiing this afternoon.
I love it.
And we call it squirking. So I ski with, other entrepreneurs and real estate professionals that we brainstorm on the lift on the way up and ski down, and then, talk shop again on the way up.
Yeah.
But we've had we've had a massive cold front here, and today is sunny and it's going to be warm, and we're going to have another major cold front coming. So I chose to take this day and ski. Usually we ski Fridays too, because the kids don't have school on Fridays here, which is so cool. And so tomorrow I'll be on the hill with my kids. And the thing that I teach is just kind of unapologetic authenticity. So I specialize in helping real estate agents and mortgage lenders reimagine and redesign their business so that it will actually finance and fuel their lives. And we really put a lot of attention on that life vision piece. And so I tend to attract agents and lenders that have been in the business a long time. And for whatever reason, they kind of lost their mojo. They know what to do. It's not that they don't have the game plan. It's just that they can't figure out why they don't feel like doing it anymore. They're kind of bored or they're burned out, or maybe they've just been sort of in that imposter syndrome role forever. Just, this is what I have to do, so I'm just going to have to do it. So we talk a lot about that obligation feeling and like interest over obligation. Like, how do we create a business that feels like something you want to do? So you're actually, like you said, fully present in the zone. And I like to do focused sprints of business development so that it's predictable and you don't make excuses. You don't cancel on yourself. Like, you say you want to grow your business. Let's come up with a plan that works around who your ideal clients are, which is going to be different for everybody. So really clarifying, A, what do you want? B, who are your ideal clients? Like, who are the people in your life that energize you? C, what does it mean to organize your time in such a way that you are consistently adding value to your target market in a way that impacts their hearts and minds and gets them talking about you and referring you, so you start to attract more and more of your ideal clients, because then you have a business that's actually energizing, not draining you. And then we move into systems to simplify and streamline and create consistency where you as a human being are inconsistent. Because at the end of the day, everybody's outcome is the byproduct of their execution. And execution tends to be inconsistent for solopreneurs because of our mood, our energy, et cetera. And that fluctuates day to day and week to week. So we really are about having that system for consistency and then ultimately getting the help in place that you need to offload those activities that you simply don't enjoy and you're not good at. Even if you used to enjoy it, maybe you don't anymore and you don't feel like doing it, fine. Get someone else to do it. Don't just make excuses for why it's not getting done and then beat yourself up about it. Right. And then the last pillar, which is the sixth pillar, is what's the plan for your active dollars? Because solopreneurs are trading hours for dollars. Until when, right? Until when? What's the plan? There's opportunity for abundance if you're smart with those dollars. And that's where I like to introduce my community to people like you, people that have achieved that early retirement from their W-2 through different strategies, different investment, different asset classes, different investment vehicles, et cetera. And so I'm a huge connector. And so initially we were doing 6-month programs and 12-week programs and 4-week programs. And then I realized I don't want it to end. So I want to create a community. So about a year ago, we opened the Pursuing Freedom Collective, and it's a course with 12 lessons that go through these pillars that we've alluded to. But then we're also live in a community format every Tuesday, Thursday for Q&A and accountability. And we have a national referral map. So the goal is to take cool people that I know from all over the country and get them connected to one another so that real estate agents can be earning off of outbound referrals to agents all over the country, getting inbound referrals, lenders the same, but also for lenders, it's beautiful because they can get behind the curtain of what real estate agents really struggle with and stop chasing them for a cup of coffee and convincing them you're a great loan officer and to send you their deals. Instead, understand what's going on with them so that you can start to bring value to them and have different conversations that are much higher level and much deeper. And in that way, I think the lender-realtor dynamic could really evolve and become something where we're truly in partnership together, because we all have the same hopes and dreams and we all have the same struggles and insecurities and challenges. And the job title doesn't define us. I think as entrepreneurs, all we are human beings trying to figure this stuff out, and we have different job titles. So that's just one of my passions. I get really fired up about the antiquated approach of cold call 30 realtors and get them to have coffee with you. I'm like, stop doing that. That's not what they care about. We need to find out what people are thinking about when they wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and then show up and be of value there. What are they worried about? What are they excited about? What are they working on? And then how can I be part of the solution to that? And it's really, really fun. So it's really for high vibe action takers that don't want to settle for mediocrity. They want to grow and expand, and they want to overcome the fear that growth means more sacrifice, more burnout. It's about taking the house down to the studs and really strengthening the foundation so we can build a taller, better structure than what most of us end up with by just trying to wing it for so long, right? So
I love that. And you mentioned the community and you guys get together. So it's a virtual deal. So anywhere in the country, anybody's eligible for this. So what would be the easiest place, because we have a pile of realtors and lenders and brokers listening to this podcast. So what would be the best next step for them connecting with you to get more information on this?
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, I want to hear from you regardless. I always say at the end of my podcast, which is called Pursuing Freedom, which is specific to real estate as well. But I like to say, hey, if there's any takeaway that you had here, let me know. Shoot me a DM. I'm on Instagram at Pursuing Freedom Official. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Erin Bradley. You can shoot me an email, erin@pursuingfreedom.com. But I always laugh with my other podcast guests and hosts that we're here having this conversation in the hopes it's bringing value to somebody out there, right? We have no idea who's listening. So send Jason a message, send me a message if there's an aha or a takeaway or something that you're going to commit to. And I would love to encourage you, don't be an inspiration junkie, be an action junkie. Listen to these podcasts, read the books, and attend the workshops to get the inspiration. But then make a commitment here and now that you're done settling, you're done playing small, and you're ready for your quantum leap, and you want to have fun doing it. Not growth at the expense of happiness and joy, but growth as the fuel for more happiness and joy. Life, the whale in the bathtub is life, not business. And then we design the business strategically to fuel that life. It's so available, but not a lot of people believe it. And so I always say the best part about the collective is that on these calls, as you watch people's lights come on and they start to experience traction, or they take a risk like hiring somebody and then they see how much it improves their business. Sometimes we borrow the belief we see in others, and sometimes we borrow the belief they see in us until our belief can expand. And so we're all here on the leading edge of the unbelievable, right?
Right. And you've alluded to it a couple times about, I think a lot about the journey versus the destination. That's kind of cliche, and I used to always be focused on, I can't wait until, right? And now I'm like, I want this journey to be something I am so passionate about that I can't envision it stopping. I don't want it to end, right? And that's what you're teaching. That is your whole philosophy. So I encourage everybody listening we'll drop all of your stuff in the show notes so folks can find you, or reach out to me if you want more information as well. I want to end on this, Erin. You've talked about a lot, your whole evolution and kind of your path to where you're at today. The most important piece of this, I know without even you having to talk about it, but is your family, your husband and your kids. With where you are today and all the intentional moves you've made and all the mistakes you've made and the fear and all that stuff you've worked through and continue to work through, how much of a positive impact has that, where you're at now, had on your family, your relationship with your kids, with your relationship with your husband, and even your friends, and things like that? How much of an impact has it had?
Well, I hope it's an example, right? I hope that, when there was a period of time, and I know any women listening probably can relate, and probably the men too, but from your wives, mom guilt is a real thing. Like the minute they're born, I remember my sister being like, get ready for mom guilt for the rest of your life. Like, you're never going to feel like you're doing it right. You're going to be feeling guilty if you're at work because you're not with your kids, and guilty with your kids when you're not at work. Anyway, maybe it's just being raised Catholic. I don't know.
Boy, no, my wife definitely content. Our kids are 13 and 8, and I mean, we both kind of deal with it, but yeah, I 100% agree.
Yeah. So there was a shift, and it was probably in 2020 when we were on the road and creating these amazing memories and this experience where the kids would, give me crap for having to work, having to take I have to take a call. I have to do this interview, this podcast. I have to do this. And I realized that I was projecting this obligation energy that I have to do this. And the truth of the matter is, I love my work. I absolutely love it. I'm here to leave an impact, and I want to change people's lives for the better. And I want to continue to change my own life for the better. And I like to hang around people that remind me of my future to help me level up and believe in the unbelievable, right? And so I started changing the story. I just said to my kids, you know what? When you grow up, I hope that you get to love your work as much as I do, because it's such a gift to be able to earn as much money as I want to earn, spend as much time as I want to with you, traveling and playing and living this life that we've created for ourselves. And most people don't get to ski on Fridays when they feel like it, right? Most people don't get to do this kind of adventure together. So we can do whatever we want because I was willing to take action in spite of fear and to do hard things, right? To get here to where we are now. So I started just really being proud of it. And I hope that's an example to them, because I don't want to give off this energy that work is a drag. Like, if you can find something you love to do and make money doing it, what a gift. What a beautiful life we get to live. So it's really just that. And we got to retire my husband from his W-2 when we moved to the mountains in 2016 through our real estate investments. And honestly, there's times where it's like, does he want to go get a job? Shall we? I don't know. Like, we think about it, right? And then at the end of the day, we're like, well, we don't want to have to ask someone else for permission for us to do whatever we want. Like, well, you get 2 weeks vacation a year. That doesn't really work for us. We travel way too much for that. So, it's just life by design. And honestly, the kids they're 14 and 12. There was a point where they're like, well, what does Dad do? Like, well, he does everything. He does everything. We make a great team. And then I had to explain to them, I was like, you don't remember what it was like when Dad was leaving the house at 6:30 in the morning and getting home at 6:30 at night. And I was running my business. And that meant that I also had to do all the grocery shopping, all the laundry, all the food prep, all the things, take you all your doctor's appointments, schedule all your sports. And now, because we have a team, Tony can handle literally everything I just said. So I, again, have to educate them that we're free and this is a beautiful thing. And hopefully you get to find your path to what freedom looks like for you. And I'm here to cheer you on that journey,
Yeah, and you're touching on the most important thing to me, and that is setting the example for them. And and again, at your kids' ages, my kids' ages, they're starting to learn it, but they really won't truly appreciate it until they get a little more mature and older. But same thing. I mean, my kids and I love to hunt, and prior to me leaving my job, we might get to go, occasionally on Saturday or something like that. But I track, or like, we journal all of our hunts and stuff like that. I spent 232 hours over the last 3 months in the woods, one-on-one with my kids. Like,
That's awesome.
And they think it's normal, but what they are, as they get older, they're going to see nobody in their class is doing this. None of their friends' dads are picking them up at 3 o'clock every day to go to the woods to hunt and help them with homework and all that. So that's a big importance to me, as I can tell it is to you. And it's setting the example, setting the model. They may want to go and work a W-2 career for their career. That's fine, but they're getting exposed to an alternative that's going to be way different than all of their friends and, the path that they're going to follow. If they want to follow that path, great. If they want to follow my path, great. But I just want to show them that it's possible, and you're doing the same. So, Erin, I appreciate you. I'm so happy that our paths have crossed, like you alluded to earlier. And as kind of I kick this thing off, that's what I love most about doing this is opportunities to connect with folks like you. We're going to drop all of your show note, or all of the links to everything you have in the show notes. I hope people take you up on, just, if nothing else, reach out via email and just have a conversation, and see what all you have going on, or follow you on Instagram. I love following what you're doing. Every time I see a video of you heading down the slopes, I've never skied in my life. So, like, that's something I've got to try, so.
Well, I've never hunted, so I also enjoy living vicariously through your journey.
Right.
I also want to say one last thing, Jason, is that as you were talking about the life you have now and the time and the hours with your kids and things like this, is that I want the listeners to know that anything is available. Like, one of the things we learned after the road trip was that there's no rules.
Yep.
And it doesn't mean that it's easy. So we've made a lot of unconventional choices. My 14-year-old lives in his eighth home because we've used real estate as part of the game to get to freedom. And so there's things that we do that are unconventional to expedite this path to freedom. And so I just thought it would be worth sharing in case someone's listening and says, like, it must be nice or it's easier for someone else, is that it's not necessarily easy, but it's harder to talk yourself into staying put. That's all. So just say yes to life and design it and run for it and have fun with it. Lighten up and have some fun and like take the chances, take the leaps, hang out with other people that are doing it and it gets a little easier.
That's the biggest thing. You gotta, and but we could go on another hour about this topic, but you are a coach yourself, but you go all the way back to when you first started. You've always had a coach, right?
Yeah.
And that, you talk about borrowing belief. I don't care where you're at on this journey or how big you get or wherever you're at. You always got to have somebody that you're borrowing belief from that's a couple steps ahead of you, maybe, or maybe on the same level, but at least can hold you accountable to what you're trying to continue to do. So I love every bit of that. I know you got to run. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you joining us. I appreciate you having me on your podcast a couple months ago. And let's keep in touch and keep collaborating. I love every minute of it. So
me too. Thank you so much, Jason.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys, what a conversation with Erin. She is obviously, as you can hear, doing things the way we kind of preach them on this show, right? She made bold decisions. She was inspired by a pursuit of freedom and flexibility, time with family, calm, all those things, and she was able to build a business and has continually done so on her terms and able to tend to that business on her time. And as you heard her mention it, as soon as we got done with the podcast, she was heading out to the slopes to ski for the afternoon and was going to do the same thing tomorrow, which would be a Friday with her kids. So that's what it's all about. That's what we're trying to inspire folks to. It doesn't have to happen overnight, but to try to take some kind of bold action and movement in their life towards what matters most to them. And for most folks, that is their family, that is freedom and flexibility, and not to let fear hold you back from at least getting that ball rolling up thinking about it, right? And folks like Erin, through, no matter where you're at in your journey, lean on resources like her or coaches like her that can kind of help you at least organizing your thoughts and a path and a plan around getting to that next step of, taking that bold action. It's bold action to just reach out to a coach and a mentor and things like that. So I encourage all of you, we're going to put Erin's links to all of her stuff down in the show notes. Check her out. If, you want to connect with her directly or connect with me and I can make an introduction, whatever works best for you. But check Erin out. We thank her for joining us, inspiring us, and all the things.